More than ever, we need to focus on stories of strength, courage, and unity. Welcome to COVID Talks, a series dedicated to promoting positive conversations during uncertain times.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to tonight's edition, the 32nd episode. I can't even believe I just said that. The 32nd episode of COVID Talks, positive conversations during uncertain times. My name is Anthony Rapp of PR Cision. I'll be your host for the evening. We have a great show tonight. We have a COVID Talks exclusive. We've had a few of them. It makes me very happy when we have them. We have with us Pamela Silvestri, the food editor for the Staten Island Advance, and she is the lifeblood, at least in my opinion, and for everyone who's watching and listening, the lifeblood of communicating what's going on in the restaurant industry and the food industry at large to the general population here on Staten Island. So we're very excited to have her with us. We know she's going to have a lot to offer, and we encourage you at the end of the segment to, of course, ask questions. We'll allot time for that because we do want you to ask any questions that you may have. But before we bring Pam up, I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you're watching us live on the live stream, if you could do me a favor and go to the bottom of the post, click that little share button. It'll help us circulate the message and spread it even more. And if you're listening to us on our podcast, thank you very much for downloading the podcast. We truly appreciate that. So we're going to begin, as we always do, with some positive news headlines of the day. And first up, proud to report that the Go in Your Purse for a Nurse campaign, and now for those of you like Vito Canena, I'm sure you're watching. For those of you who have been with us since day one, you'll remember that we had the creators of this campaign on our show as featured guests. And what they did was they raised over $20,000 for first responders, for medical responders. And today they took the money raised and distributed $20,000 worth of gift cards to local restaurants to first responders here on Staten Island at Staten Island University Hospital. So we were honored to have them with us in the beginning, and we are proud to report that they achieved their goal and are making such a difference here in the community. And shout out to all our first responders because you deserve it more than anyone we know. Next up, so a article hit today that apparently there is a mask in development that's going to light up when the coronavirus is detected. So either we're all going to walk around looking like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or if this works, it's going to probably make the current masks that we all have and that we all bought obsolete. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what the results and what the research shows. But hopefully they come up with a product that can be used, that can be mass produced, and that can be purchased so that if it actually does work and can help us, maybe we can all get one and return back to normal sometime. And finally, we all know Staten Island's own Julia Gargano, American Idol superstar. This Sunday night, tune in. This Sunday night, we're going to see and we're going to need your votes to help make her this year's idol. So we encourage you to support a fellow Staten Islander. We encourage you to tune in. We encourage you to follow her on social media. And of course, we want you to vote for her. And how can you learn more information about us? How can you follow us? So here at COVID Talks, you can follow us on Facebook at COVID Talk. Check us out on our website at covid-talks.com. The website has all of our previous episodes and guests, as well as all of our upcoming episodes and guests. Of course, we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at COVID Talks and check us out on our podcast at iTunes, on iTunes and Spotify. And finally, if you're interested in being a guest, if you'd like to host a live stream like we're doing here for yourself or a client, or if you simply have a topic you want us to discuss, send us an email, info@prcision.com. We'll get to the emails. We'll search through the content. We'll get you set up and get you ready. All right. So as I said earlier, very excited to have with us Ms. Pam Silvestri from the Staten Island Advance. And there's a couple of reasons why I think Pam is so valuable for the community. First and foremost, she is not just the food editor. So meaning she's not just talking about going into a restaurant and eating the food. She has chops. She is the former owner of a Michelin and Zagat-rated restaurant, which was here on Staten Island, the American Grill. And that gives her so much more knowledge of the industry. So when she's writing an article or when she's reaching out to Staten Island restaurants or Staten Island markets, such as, Top Tomato and these places, because her column and her purview covers anything food related. So it's not just restaurants, it's supermarkets, it's everything. But she not only has the vantage point of being able to decipher what's a good dish and what's a bad dish, but she has the ability to bring knowledge to the table of food cost, of how to actually operate and run a business, all the things that go on behind the scenes, which now more than ever is critical, because as we know, the restaurant industry is pretty much on lockdown. Delivery is available, pickup is available, but restaurants are suffering very much so right now, probably second to the events industry, because all the events have been postponed. So we're excited to have her here with us. We're going to bring her up now. And I almost forgot. While we were in the green room, Pam mentioned something to me, which we're going to announce for the first time anywhere here on COVID Talks, which again makes me smile because it's another COVID Talks exclusive. So without further ado, we have Pam Silvestri. Pam, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you? Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday.
I think it's Friday.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really, right? At this point?
It's, just another day, I guess.
So before we get into the conversation, I don't believe it's possible that there's anyone listening or watching that doesn't know who you are. But if you would humor us and give us a little bit about your background and where you came from.
Sure. I'm a native Staten Islander, and I have two little boys. I have two little boys, Andrew and James Caballero, and my husband is David, and he is Farmer Dave, as he's known. We, just sort of ordinary Staten Islanders. We live in West Brighton, and I see some people on the scroll there. David Tepper, a friend of mine, and
Dave Tepper's the best.
Yeah, Dave has the food truck that runs at Mount Loretto. That's pretty cool. Hello, Dave. And Vito. Hello, Vito. And Janine Fanuzzi. I know Janine. And anyway, so I just wanted to say hello. And I don't know. I went to St. Joseph Hill Academy and St. Dorothy's for a couple of years. And again, I really just go way back. So I have a lot of family and friends from here. And you are pretty admirable what you do, and the fact that you started out where you did. And yeah, that's pretty cool. I think we have similar
Thank you.
in the community.
So tell us about owning a Michelin and Zagat-rated restaurant, because that is no easy feat. You could ask anyone. I know you talk to them all day, but that raises both your expertise and your level of knowledge to a whole other level. So tell us a little bit about the restaurant. Tell us the experiences, and then ultimately, I'm curious myself. Why did you sell in 2006?
That's a good question. Actually, we had. I really wanted to start a family. I really believe that you do everything 100% or you just don't do it at all.
Agreed.
The reality was that the restaurant was literally a 24/7 operation with our own family of people, our employees and our customers. And I felt that you couldn't have children in this whole mix. So we decided, and honestly, after a miscarriage, frankly, I thought, okay, well, this is it. We're selling the restaurant, and we did. We sold it to a gentleman who was our chef and his wife. And at the time, kind of a crazy story with the American Grill, we had a very bad flooding problem. And we had a landlord that we didn't, wasn't kind of ameliorating the situation with the flooding. So we decided there was a break in the lease. And I thought, well, you know what, we're going to go. And the landlord was like, no, you're not. You're doing really well here. And I said, yes, we are. We're going. And my husband's like, you're crazy. We're not going anywhere. And then something opened up, which was this place that had, it was called the Iguana Cafe. It was on the corner of Victory Boulevard and Clove Road.
Of course, I remember it well.
And Guy Sal Markey, who had owned it, he was interested in rebranding, because what happened was they had an association with something pejorative with 9/11, which is the former owner of Iguana had stolen a bulldozer, from ground zero, some crazy thing like that. Anyway, so the restaurant kind of got a bad rap, and he was interested in changing the name. He changed the name. It was called, I think he changed it to like American Bistro. He had the same exact awning with the red scalloped edge and like the same neon and everything. I was like,
yep.
Dude, I call him up. I'm like, it's kind of similar. I said, if you don't change it, I'm gonna have to like be aggressive here and, sue you. And he's like, I don't want to own this restaurant anymore. And anyway, we came to an agreement. We took over the lease, and, we ended up, going in, and we sort of shared the space a little bit, and then we redid it, and then we took it over, and we moved, and then we sold the restaurant to the new people. So
that's awesome. So I don't want to focus too much on the restaurant, but what did it feel like when first of all, I don't even know how it happened. So how do you get notified as a restaurant owner that you have become or you've received a Michelin star? And what did that feel like?
It was interesting because it wasn't a star. It was we were recognized by.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it's kind of, believe me. But what was interesting was we had worked really hard and we had gotten recognized. And then when we changed ownership, it took years to get to that point. So,
right.
But what was interesting with Zagat is that I couldn't get into Zagat. It was the hardest thing. We have been recognized all over the place. And then one day, Mayor Bloomberg came into our restaurant. I won't belabor this point, but I invited him to the restaurant. He wasn't getting recognized on Staten Island. And I said, you know what? I said to my husband, what?
That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
I was like, we can't go wrong. I mean, the guy can afford a meal. And, if he doesn't win, but he'll come back as a customer maybe. And
Exactly.
I invited him and he showed up. He showed up like within a week. And my husband was like, you're crazy. He's never going to show up. I'm like, yeah, just do it. So anyway, so I wrote him the letter. He shows up and he said to me, Pamela, what do you want to do? And he made me sit down with them. He and his girlfriend, Diana, and we had a nice conversation. He was very lovely, great, very gracious. And I said, you know what? The meal's on us. He said, I can well afford the meal. He said, no, whatever you want. I'll give you whatever you want. What do you want? I was like, well, I'd love to be in Zagat survey. And so he's like, okay. And so he's like, my friends Tim and Nina will call you on Monday. And they did. They really did. He was really gracious. And
that's a great story.
And that's how we got into Zagat survey. It was like, cool. Wow. Yeah. And then after that, it was like everything just kind of came with it, which was nice.
So talk about the transition from hanging out with politicians and running a Zagat-rated restaurant to now becoming the go-to source for everything food. And I want to make that clear. So it's not only just restaurants, it's everything. It's from the farmer's market. It's to events like my company runs, like the Food Truck Festival in Mount Loretto. It's you encompass everything. So how'd you transition to all things food on Staten Island?
Well, we actually, when I was in the restaurant and I was invited to join the newspaper, I was brought on by Mr. Leyline. He he wanted me to be a columnist. And I thought, well, what would be really good for the Advance is something about ethnic food. He's like, there's not enough ethnic food out there. And I was like, yeah, there really is. You can, write about anything. There's tons of it. Sri Lankan food and everything else. Anyway, so my original beat was for a column at the Advance. It was called Traditions. And I literally walked the streets of on Victory Boulevard, Tompkinsville, and in, New Brighton and Port Richmond Avenue. And I also speak Spanish, kitchen Spanish. So it was I literally had to work very, very hard to, understand the people and understand the cultures and to write about it. It took a lot of time. And then I eventually, my editor, Mrs. Milza, decided to retire. And then I moved into the food editor position. So, but all that training from the restaurant business, from going through, parenthood and things like that. It's it makes you a little bit more, gives you more perspective, I guess, in various things of food. And by the way, I want to tell you, Dave Tepper, my favorite thing to do in a restaurant, I love to do this. One of my favorite things, aside from peeling eggs and deveining shrimp, is cleaning out. I love cleaning a deep fryer. So if you ever need to lose a bet or win a bet or whatever, you can bet that I will clean your deep fryer. I'm not joking. That is one of my favorite things to do. But anyway, so Emanuela, hello. How are you? It's good to see you. And that's your beautiful wife. And congratulations. You guys have a growing family. That's nice. And the newspaper is great. I, have a lot of fun with it. We're very fortunate. I have great colleagues at the Advance. And actually, you had mentioned something that we could talk about that no one else knows, or maybe Shane DeMeo knows, because Shane had shown up to Flagship Brewing Company this evening, and they were just about to sell their new beer, which is Ralph's Ice's beer. They had a collaboration with the brewery. They have a hard seltzer, and the hard seltzer is different flavors, and one is lemon, watermelon, and orange creamsicle. And yes.
So I just had a power outage in my home, and my internet dropped. So do you still even see the screen?
I do see the screen. I think I'm on here. Anthony's on the phone.
Okay, good. So if you're still live, if you could be so kind as to explain that we just had a power outage at my home, and I'm going to log back in 2 seconds.
You got it. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, Anthony just called and he said that there was a power outage. I was wondering why he wasn't on the screen. But anyway, so I'll run things until the power goes on wherever he is on the South Shore. So Ralph's Ices just came out with a collaboration with Flagship Brewing Company, and they have lemon, watermelon, and orange creamsicle ices. Awesome. And the ice is put into the beer and brewed. I think that's awesome. So good job, Flagship Brewing Company. A couple of other kind of cool things. As you know, Giovanni's Trattoria is doing virtual wine tastings and different things with the restaurant. I think that's the coolest thing ever. Lori Honor over in Stapleton did a wine tasting last night that I went to. It was amazing. Just hello, Elaine Sorigliano. Oh my gosh, you related to Gail? You must be Gail's niece. So anyway, well, he's back.
Thank you. So, I mean, even when things are going great and we were on a roll, there's a power outage. And I don't know how, but it flicked the entire house, my office, and the computer. So I apologize for that, Pamela. But thank you for being the MC and running the show without me. I appreciate that. And continue, please. I don't want to interrupt you now. So continue shouting out who you were talking to, and then we'll get back to the questions. No,
we just talked about Flagship Brewing Company and their collaboration with Ralph's Ices. And also, I wanted to tell you, do you remember Cangiano's restaurant, Cangiano's Deli in Sella Maria?
Of course.
Well, they opened up a place in Jersey City, and Cosmo, the guy who owns it, it's at 225 Pavonia Avenue, and I'm speaking to them on Monday. So that's kind of cool. They're so busy this weekend. They started as a pop-up sandwich shop in Jersey City, and then they, opened up their thing. I'm just kind of so curious. Cool. I can't wait to go there.
Did you drop the exclusive about it's available? Yes.
Yes. We did that with the Flagship Brewing Company.
I lost it. I lost my COVID Talks exclusive. I wanted to put it there so bad.
That's okay. It's a Staten Island Advance scooped,
I got you. All right.
It's all good.
So we were in the midst of talking about before the internet was interrupted, how you got involved with the Advance. And I'm going to assume you explained that during my troubles. Perfect. So you know what? We're going to move on to our next topic. So let's talk about what's going on right now with the food industry. So the food industry has been hit probably harder than any other industry outside of live events or somewhere in the mix as far as how they're unable to stay open, and it's difficult to be able to work in the day-to-day operations. So going back to when this all began, and I guess I don't know the exact date, but we'll call it March. What did you think when you heard about the pause, about the changes that restaurants were going to have to make under all circumstances, no matter what? What did you think then going into this, how it would be received and how restaurants would fare?
What's interesting is that the very time that I was in, it was a strange rolling into this whole thing. It's a long story, but Edward Gomez from Cargo Cafe and Denoy Restaurants and the Burrito Shop and the Salad Junkie.
Of course.
He called me up on like a Friday night, like at 4:30, 5 o'clock. He's like, "Hey, can you come on down to Cargo? I got something to tell you." And Scott Lebedo is here, and he's got like some news. And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Oh." Everyone
loves Scott. Shout out to Scott.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. So I was like, all right, well, you know what? Like, I've got the kids and I got dinner going and everything. So can we do it like maybe tomorrow or Sunday? He was like, how about Sunday? I was like, okay. So Sunday noon, I go to Denoy, and in the long story short, it was like the last day we went to church, I think it was. I'm coming out of church, racing down Bay Street to go see what Scott has to say. And he's this big announcement. And I get there, and New York One is there, and a whole bunch of restaurant owners that I recognize, like the great restaurants on the island. You had Mario Rapaglia from Barrios. You had, Franco from Italianissimo, Julian from Beso Blue and Bayou. You had all these great restaurant owners in the room. In the meantime, Scott comes out with this idea, like, how are we going to change the perception of restaurants with this whole COVID-19 thing going on? You can't hug, you can't kiss, we can't be Staten Islanders. So he puts up this big sign, and it's this an alarming red and yellow sign, and it says all these rules that you have to abide by in order to come in the restaurant. Basically, it was the beginning of his idea. He was a little bit ahead of the curve, actually,
right?
Because he was like, oh, well, we're going to assure customers that there's no touching, hugging, kissing, shaking hands. We're going to put a little more table space in between each table. I mean, he had the right idea, but as I was driving home from that. So that was at noon. 1:30, I went to Bloom Cafe. I got a latte, and on my way, I went to Massimo from Venom on the way out.
There you go.
Yeah, crazy.
Shout out to Moss from Venom.
So I'm leaving there, and on the radio, it's talking about how they closed the restaurants to all dining. It was the most bizarre thing. Like, that was it. And then that night, all my friends who were in the produce business, fish business, or any kind of grocery business for the industry, the restaurant owners over the course of the day and into the night, particularly between 8 and 10 p.m., started calling and canceling their orders. And who's up at the Hunts Point Market was driving up there, to go pick up their produce and everything, and and all that. Literally, I was watching the whole thing deteriorate, and people were texting me overnight, like from the markets, and like talking about it. And then over the course of the week, I'd wake up and my phone would have like 20 texts on it, and people weren't sleeping. They were like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? Should I stay open? Should I stay closed? I mean, how are we going to?" Then suddenly, between March 15th and March 17th, all the Chinese restaurants closed, except for maybe 2. Right. And it was the craziest thing. And I just remember, I have this show that I do on Facebook Live just to keep my sanity and remember to get up in the morning and get dressed and, whatever.
We're going to talk about that because it's a great show. I love it.
Oh, thank you. It's funny because I literally will write down the date. I don't know if you could see this, but I literally have to write down the date. That's great. Because I can't remember otherwise sometimes. So anyway, I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the show, and then people are starting to come on the scroll and they're telling me like, "Oh, is Green Garden open? Is Kyoto 5 open? Is Sushi Zen open?" I'm like, I don't know, and I start calling and they're all closed. So the Staten Island Advance broke the story about the Chinese restaurants being closed in the area and I kept saying, some of my restaurant friends were like, "What do they know that we don't know?" Right. And the reality was that they had family back in China and they knew how bad it was, so they had a little bit of a leg up on the situation. And, and the other thing is that they were the first group of restaurants to really feel the pinch from people calling out sick. Yep. Because the employees were terrified, in the kitchens. Yeah. And so it was just a bizarre, it took 3 weeks for me to figure that out, So
you just mentioned something that I wanted to ask you anyway, but you said you were compiling a list. So I know, and I don't remember, I wish I knew the date, but I know very early on, you created an Excel spreadsheet more or less, right? Or a Google Doc. Yeah. And you literally put into this Google Doc every restaurant that was open in the entire borough. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you do know the answer, but how many restaurants are there? There's over 1,000. Is that fair?
At the moment, there's 997 restaurants on Staten Island.
I was so close.
You were very close.
You were able to monitor, maintain, and update that list and share it with everybody.
This is what happened, and this is where Staten Island Eats and Drinks comes into play. So
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, the Advance has this great website, which is called Where Staten Island Eats and Drinks, and it's kind of like a stream of conscious, a lot of information. It's a big river of information from readers and whatnot. And what happened was, my colleagues Mark Stein and he's the admin on that page, and Victoria Priola at the Advance. What was happening was people were starting to report of closures, and a lot of them. So they started compiling lists, and I started compiling lists, and then I had a couple of other colleagues there. We started compiling a list of closures on markets, and it was really crazy. It was a crazy time. So we literally merged all this gathering of data and made it a link to the places that were closed, that were open. It was very hard. It is very hard to maintain. As of today, May 15th, a lot of places are open. June 3rd is another big date. Iguana Cafe is going to, they're, I believe, June 7th, they're reopening, and they're doing curbside and pickup delivery. I just want to shout out a few restaurant owners that do a remarkable job, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love to.
Danny Mills of Ruddy and Dean is admirable. I mean, he's strong-headed to begin with, but he had he just stuck with it, and he learned from his, mistakes and the delivery, and he's amazing, and he's still there.
From what I understand, and not to cut you off, but I believe I read your article, he was selling prime cuts of steak or some in the very beginning, just fresh meat, high-end meat. Is that correct? That was a great idea.
So it was interesting because I was having a conversation with the guy from, the owner of Angelina's restaurant that's been Malerba, and we're chatting, and we were blindsided. We had no idea what was going on. It was literally being underwater, and we were having this garbled conversation, basically what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm thinking of opening up an Italian marketplace. I'm going to put a big tent in the yard of Angelina's, and they're going to come. They can buy Italian products. I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea, because he said to me. And he's the one that was kind of enlightened about this. He's like, you know what? My food distributor is not selling anything to restaurants. So at least I can make people not wait on the line at the supermarket.
Right.
That's a good idea. So I put it in a column because I kept a diary at that point. And then all of a sudden Massimo did it. Massimo Felici from Vinum Restaurant. He owns the Richmond, which is across the street in Stapleton. He also owns the contract at Casa Belvedere, and they are still open. They're still servicing members. Another tenacious guy, amazing. He took this is a Michelin noted chef with the Bib Gourmand. What he had at the American Grill. He did this presentation. All of a sudden, this Michelin noted guy is selling like toilet paper. Yeah. And it was like at the time I'm like, oh my God, this is not shameful. This is admirable. And then Manhattan started doing it. And I don't know. I just have a lot of respect for him for doing that and changing gears so quickly.
So we touched on the Facebook page a little bit, and I don't want to belabor the point with the Facebook page, but I put it here on the bottom of the screen. If there is anyone watching or listening that is not a member, I find it hard to believe, but you're missing out because the work that goes in between Pam, the moderators at the Advance, Mark Stein, shout out to Mark, the work that goes into that, you think it's arbitrary, but the reality is that 90% or even 95% of Staten Island goes to that resource, goes to that group to see what the specials are, to see what's going on, to see who's open, who's closed. So that actually became an amazing resource that you're a part of. So we thank you for that, Pam. And guys, if you're not a part of it, you better go join it now because it has everything you need and everything you want to know about the Staten Island restaurant business. I give,
Shane DeMeo, Victoria Priola, Mark Stein. These are really reliable people, who report on restaurants and whatnot, help round out all the reporting, and they do a wonderful job with this site. It's a little bit crazy at times because people are very opinionated about
food. Of course.
It goes into territory, but.
So let's talk about, you mentioned Massimo and how he did some adapting. Vinny Malerba, shout out to Vinny. Backstory, I used to work for Vinny many, many years ago when I was in high school at the Angelina's location located in Annandale. Then I transitioned, and I also worked for him at Angelina's Totten Villa. Great family, great business owner. But what are some of the other things that you've seen? And again, because the theme of this is all positivity, right? Mm-hmm. What are some other really unique adaptations that you've seen restaurant owners do during this period that you think are noteworthy?
The creativity was unbelievable. And adapting to a to-go format when you're a linen cloth sit-down restaurant is about a level of difficulty of about a 15.9 on a scale of 0 to 10. So they did it beautifully. Max Zazeska, Max Galicchio, you got to see amazing. Cocktail,
Max is amazing. Shout out Chef Max.
Phenomenal. The other one that did it really well was Pasta Vino, which is a place in Irby. It's Vic Rallo, celebrity chef from PBS. He did a wonderful transition, not Vic necessarily. He wasn't the one staffing the restaurant. It was John Gorga, who's a Staten Island native. He did a marvelous job. They have this talented chef, Josh Lorano. Not only did they do cocktails and the food to go packaged so beautifully, and they put it in the trunks of people's cars, and the same care and love that all the food that they do at that beautiful restaurant, right on the water. You can't sit in their dining room here. They did all the loving stuff. They did it very carefully and very well with the to go. And they also opened up a restaurant across the way. They just opened up a restaurant last night.
Wow.
Yeah, the format it's great. One thing that came out of this whole thing that's a positive thing for the business owner is the lack of shame in doing something immediately in order to cut the bleeding, to stop the bleeding. They cut hours. They boom, I'm selling bleach. That's it. You want to buy toilet paper for me? Bam. You know what? You can buy toilet paper for me. They would do anything to survive. And Julian Gaxoli over at Beso, Blue and Bayou, he sold cold cuts. And
that's interesting.
Sandwiches.
But they're still open. That's the thing. So they're still open. They're still managing to survive. Right. And we've had a few of the people you mentioned guests on the show, which we were privileged to have. And they said the same thing. They were like, we have to adapt. We have to do this. But some of them actually said some of the creative things that they've developed during this time aren't going to be just a Band-Aid to get them out of this time. They've said that they've come up with, certain things and unique ways of doing stuff that they're going to carry out even when we come out the end of this rabbit hole, which leads me to my next question. So today was supposed to be the end of the pause. And now we know it's not over. But with respect to this question, it doesn't really matter because the pause for restaurants wasn't going to be over today anyway. So the very difficult question I ask you, but again, just in your opinion, with so much knowledge and such a background of both business and specifically what's going on Staten Island, where do you see us coming out of this? How do you see this playing out? People interacting with each other, going back and sitting in, you mentioned Besso. Besso is a tiny restaurant. I've been there many times. I love it. But do you think people are going to sit this close? How do you think people are going to respond, especially here on Staten Island, where, let's be honest, food is more than food. It's a part of our culture, I think. Yeah. I feel. So how does this look? What do you think, in your opinion?
I think that it's going to be a 2 to 3 year struggle for everybody. We're going to lose a lot of restaurants along the way. When we first started this, I just couldn't wrap my head around restaurants really adjusting to the sit down, to the lack of the sit down format and changing gear so dramatically. And they did. So originally I predicted that 70% of the restaurants would kind of shut down or completely change over to some sort of very casual concept. But, they managed to muddle through it. And Staten Island is an unusual place. It's a place of a lot of roots, like I'm a native. The first thing that people do, they want to help you. They want to patronize you. They are going to go out of their way to make sure that you survive. I've never seen any more generous a bunch of people than people on Staten Island. They're very loving, very caring. A lot of people are anchored in, faith of some sort. And they are.
Not to interrupt you, but I love that you say that, because that's one of the things that I try and evoke the guests to say, but 99% of the time, I don't have to get them. They do just what you did. And they say how amazing Staten Island is. And I love that, because we're the forgotten borough. The media makes fun of us. You got the mob wives on TV. You got all this stuff going on. But at the end of the day, Staten Islanders are here for each other. And we get the job done. So even in the case of restaurants, like you're mentioning, that's very important to hear. And now please continue, but I wanted to make a point that means so much to me and the listeners, and I'm sure the people watching, because we get a bad rap, and the reality is that we always do the right thing and get stuff done.
It's funny that you say that, because I get like misty eyed thinking about it, because people are so beautiful. I mean, like 99.9% of the people in my dealings are wonderful people. You get that one dirt bag. I mean, all right, and they're from Brooklyn. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, we're a good bunch of people, and like I said, we're rooted. And you can't give somebody the middle finger walking by and not have the consequences because they know you or they know your cousin or whatever. Anyway, the point is that I just want to illustrate something too. This is a very Staten Island thing. My mother is buried in Resurrection Cemetery, which is out in Pleasant Plains and Princess Bay. And when you start picking your head up and you're looking around, like on things that I can't do anymore, on Easter, around Easter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't go to the cemetery to put flowers on my mother's grave. And I know this is a very Staten Island thing, but the section that she's in Resurrection, the people they all go. There's so many people there that, I mean, everybody puts stuff on the graves, and then it becomes like a little community. And then, you go, oh, look at this one. It's almost like a peaceful thing to go and the flowers there. And
absolutely.
Then,
yeah.
So, it's like they also have picnics there. That's a very Staten Island thing. You can go there on any holiday and people are having a picnic under a tree or something like that. So,
agreed, because it gives you that feeling of release, and you want to see your loved ones. I know they opened it up for Mother's Day, and I live very close, and I actually had went to try and visit my father, and they shut it down. The Advance didn't report it, but I was there. There were cars on the lawn. There was a line to Highland Boulevard. There was a line to Amboy Road. It was so. And again, people have been cooped up trying to get out, and that's not a detriment to anybody. It's just a fact, because you're right. The community is so close knit that was such an important thing, where people may think, who cares about that? But it was such an important thing that it actually caused disruption, and people were fighting and arguing to try and go see their loved ones. So you're right.
And my cousin lives out in Great Kills, and I'm just real quick. We had a conversation that day. We did a Zoom with my cousin, and she's like, "You don't want to go to Resurrection. It's like a traffic jam there." I'm like, "What? A traffic jam?" So
that's so shifting gears a little bit, because I want to ask you one more thing that I think is important to the entire industry, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that it's important. Then we're going to do our COVID Talks Hero of the Day. And we're going to invite anyone who's watching or listening right now to use the comment section to ask any questions you may have for Pam. So you could take the opportunity to do that now if you have a question. If you don't, it's okay. But please take the opportunity to do so now. Pam, what do you think about the ability to sell alcohol? So I know that, it was done, and I don't know for sure, but I imagine it was done because, in restaurants, the margins on liquor is so high, and it's such a large percentage of revenue that's taken in. So the government, the state, whoever made that, the SLA, whoever made that decision, probably was saying, you know what, let's throw these guys a bone. Let's allow them to deliver so at least they can pay the electric bill or make some kind of money. I haven't heard a negative story, and this is where we'll ask your opinion, of any detrimental or any bad thing that has happened as a result of a restaurant delivering sangria, a bottle of wine, etc. Do you think this is something that can continue, or this is just a Band-Aid? The SLA is going to come back when the world is put back on and say, guys, that's it, enough. What do you think?
I think, anytime, for every action, there is a reaction, and lawmakers mean well. And I love the people at the SLA. They're generally an overwhelmed bunch. I don't think it's the best staffed agency, but they mean well. But for every time you change something in a market, it has a domino effect, and you don't know what it is. And if you're not familiar with the industry, you don't really understand the effects of what you do. It's a ripple effect. So now restaurants are all in the game of selling cocktails and everything, which is awesome. It's great. I mean, there's a reason why there are laws that you can't put alcohol in a car and ship it, because people can open up the container and drink it, drunk driving. But the other thing that happened is it screwed up the whole liquor industry. I mean, I don't know, for good and bad. I mean, one thing that happened was, those splits, never really were in demand, and now restaurants are starting to ask for them.
Right.
So, there's not enough of them, supply, demand. But the other thing that happened is the neighborhood liquor store. What happens to them? If I'm selling a case of wine from my restaurant, I'm getting a good deal from the, going to burn off my inventory. What happens to the people on the corner? So what happened to them in my neighborhood was that, it was the market was watered down a little bit. They did see a little nick in sales. I live in West Brighton, and West Brighton is a big drinking neighborhood. We got a lot of bars here and everything.
I think all of Staten Island's a big drinking neighborhood. You don't have to single yourself out.
No, here it's like bar after bar. There's 3, 4 liquor stores within a mile. I mean,
okay, so you got us beat. You got us beat here on the South Shore. So we like our drinks, but and also happy hour and things like that. But the other thing that happened is you have a lot of people who are drinking alone, and I don't know. It's like the whole point of having a cocktail is it's a social thing, and I don't know. Listen, everything you said is correct. I agree with you about the legality of drinking and driving and all that stuff, but it seems like I haven't, and again, not that I'm an expert, but I haven't seen the story hit the Times or the Post or the Advance that says, Uber driver found drunk drinking someone's bottle of wine. I mean,
I'm looking at the negative stuff. I mean, you must have had roots at the Staten Island Advance, because you're coming up with these great questions. So, no, but you have think about it. I mean, a lot of ingenuity has come out of it. Peter Botros is, for Cinco de Mayo and, at Sophia's Taqueria, they started packaging big bottles of margaritas and 10 varieties. I mean, that's fantastic.
So do you think they're going to let us, and again, just your opinion, do you think they're going to let restaurants ship a limited amount, maybe just wine and completely sealed, etc.? Or do you think whenever phase, I believe we're phase 4 restaurants, I think restaurants are 4 or 3, but when that phase hits, do you think there's going to pull it and that's it?
No, I think it's going to continue. I think once you put something like that in place and people run with it and they see the possibilities with it, it's going to be amazing. I mean, they're going to do great things. Great.
I thought you were going to say the exact opposite. I thought you were going to say, nope, I think they're going to shut it down. Okay.
No. The one thing I really don't like, the idea that's come out of this, and I saw this on another Facebook page, whatever it was talking about, WPIX was the one who actually introduced this idea of having closing down pedestrian, or they announced this, that politicians are talking about closing down streets and making these pedestrian ways and stuff like that, which I think horrible idea. I see Mount Loretto as, you have food trucks there and you have a place to congregate. But once my background is in urban planning and architecture, once you don't establish those traffic patterns,
that's it.
The bus routes and all that, and the predictability of where the cars go, once you start disrupting traffic, you don't get that flow back. And that's what we want, Anyway.
Very interesting. All right. So I'm going to interrupt you for 1 minute, and I apologize, but we're going to do our COVID Talks Hero of the Day. Again, this is the opportunity for anyone who's watching us live to please use the comment section. When we come back, we will bring up any questions that you have or any shout outs that you have. And today's COVID Talks Hero of the Day is the Verrazano Kiwanis Club. So the Verrazano Kiwanis Club, along with Victoria Montori, Miss Richmond County Outstanding Teen, and of course our fearless Assemblywoman Nicole Maliatakis, we're at Holy Family Church in Westerly, and this is the 3rd drive-by pantry that they have hosted. And it was hosted yesterday, and as you can see, even though it's a little small on the graphic, they're going to be hosting another one May 21st. So again, an ancillary effect of this whole COVID outbreak and the virus and being on pause, an ancillary effect that's becoming a real problem is access to food. So we salute the Verrazano Kiwanis Club, along with Assemblywoman Maliatakis and Miss Richmond County Outstanding Teen, for partnering with Holy Family, actually in Pam's neighborhood out in Westerly, for hosting these drive-through food pantry donations. We thank you for doing that. All right, so we're back, and now this is the nerve-wracking part. So I'm going to go to the comment section. I'm going to see what we got, and if we have something good, we're going to pull it up. If we don't, and it's just someone like Dave Tepper making fun of me, I'll just take it. I'll take it, and that'll be fine. Let's see.
Massimo's on there. Massimo thinks that they should allow restaurants to sell cocktails to go, not bottles of wine, because in all fairness, you will be taking away business from the local wine store. I agree with you, Massimo. I think that's excellent. And Massimo, I want to compliment you on your packaging of your cocktails. Massimo had a virtual wine tasting a couple of weeks ago. Unbelievable. So organized. His sommelier, Roberto, did a beautiful job with the descriptions and everything else. Everything was labeled. It was almost like a woman did it. I don't know what happened, Massimo. I'm just kidding. It was so organized. It was so like beautifully packaged. The food came hot. Everything was perfect. It really was.
Shout out to Massimo. Doing great stuff. All right. You know what? Dave Tepper's got a good one. So, will the fine dining restaurants continue to do delivery? So, Dave, what do you mean by that? You mean, will they go back to, and I'm going to interpret Dave's question, Pam, because I know Dave very well. So I think maybe he's asking, do you think that, as you mentioned, the transition from linen to go bags, do you think they'll no longer do that? Or you think it's something they'll continue?
I think you can't, once you introduce a convenience to customers, they don't go back. And I think that it's an uncharted territory for restaurants, especially since most likely they're going to have to reduce the capacities of their dining rooms. So they have to maintain the sales and pay the rent and pay the overhead. And New York City is not going to change property taxes, and it's not going to give a break to landlords if their payments are late. So, you got to adjust. And this is how they're going to adjust, is the to-go format. And
they're doing a good job.
They're doing a wonderful job. And the fact that, they can transition so easily. And even Trattoria Romana, the guy, he's not a Facebook user, not a Instagram guy. He's an older restaurant owner.
That's when you become such a pivotal person in the communication. Because like I said, without access to you and your daily feed that you're doing, your live stream, and without access to you and the whole team of you guys working on the Where Staten Island Eats and Drinks, how's anyone going to know what's going on over there at Trattoria, right? So
the whole thing is just, it's constant exchange of information. There's no restaurant and tavern association on Staten Island. So the one thing that I can hope to do at the Advance is to give restaurant owners and business owners a forum to have their stuff brought out. I mean, like, a lot of stuff has come out in this. A lot of restaurants are not serviced in a lot of ways, and they don't have any kind of spokesperson or anything. And I do look at the Advance as that kind of.
You're the advocate and the platform. And it's great. It works. So it's ironic. So first of all, shout out to my beautiful wife, Emanuela, who was watching. But I had this in my list of questions, and I didn't answer, and I didn't ask it. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, but I would imagine the way they're doing everything in stages, that at some point they're going to say that restaurants with outdoor dining can open maybe before those without. So my wife's question is, when do you think outdoor events and dining can begin again? Do you think that that's something that'll happen first, or that'll happen in tangent with?
Such a good question. I think it's a wonderful question. I think, the first, knee-jerk thing to do is to have an outdoor event. Oh, wow, we can socially distance. I just don't see that happening for at least a year from now, especially with people being, scared that the thing is going to come back. So people aren't necessarily rushing out to do that sort of thing. I also think that, doing outdoor events and having it reminds me a lot of what happened in the pandemic of 1918, where, they had a parade in Philadelphia, and, to generate goodwill and money and whatever for the war, and people came out and they got sick, and Philadelphia was one of the hardest hit cities with the whole Spanish flu. So I really don't see that happening.
What about restaurants with outdoor seating from a different perspective? So the event standpoint, unfortunately, I do agree with you. I wish I didn't say that, because, as you know, my company does a lot of these big events, and we're proud and we love to do it. But on the restaurant side, if you have outdoor seating or patio, or do you think that might be opened or might be usable space in the near future, or do you think it's going to be held?
absolutely, I could see counters being put in place where people are 6 feet apart. In Amsterdam, they put these little glass houses for people to sit in the finer restaurants where there's already a lot of space
Really?
on the tables. Yeah, it's kind of cool looking, actually. You have your little personal space with for a party of 2.
Yeah.
But I just, the whole thing is messed up. I mean, the hardest hit, and the industry that I can't even wrap my head around right now, is the catering industry with catering halls.
Oh yeah.
It's like I get ill thinking about, oh my gosh, seriously.
Yeah. And especially because so many of the people who own these establishments are friends of ours and outstanding people in the community. So it makes it even, not that if they weren't nice people, they deserve it, but the fact that they are all of them philanthropic, generous to the community, always giving back, always doing the right thing, and they have the ability.
Look at Chef Marfolio, Lou Marfolio up at Didino's Catering Hall. He just redid the catering hall. Legrecki's, the Staten, largely older clientele, and they have an a la carte restaurant. Like, oh my gosh. But the party deposits are a whole nother issue.
Because that's got to go back. It's got to be postponed. You got to figure it out.
Crazy nuts. And then one more thing is that, Staten Islanders, we are huge party goers. We especially on the South Shore. I mean, occasion crazy. I mean, we have to have a party. It's a first birthday party. Oh my God, you're gonna have the whole 3-tier cake and everything. And party favors. I mean, that's a huge industry for the South Shore. Huge. And a perfect example is Jordan Berber over at Rossville Delivery. He has an amazing delivery service. He handles 10 different places, including Moretti's Bakery in West Brighton and Laura's Cupcake Shack, and
good work. Good. He's a good guy.
He's a great guy, and he's a hard worker, and his industry is, he's always going to be resilient, but his industry, he was really making headway with these catering halls. He was the only one that people would trust to ship their cakes. So if your cake was well put together and anchored properly and everything, you can ship it, no problem. And
I put up a comment from Dan Ryan. Thank you for everything you've been doing, Pam. A shout out to you, sharing some love. And so with that, Pam, I am going to thank you so much for being with us. The comment section, I'm going to close it down. You can feel free to look at it afterwards. You can scroll through the stream and see what happened. But I really do want to thank you. It meant the world to have you here because, again, there's no one who knows more about the industry than you do. I apologize we had that technical glitch there, but you did a great job. You were both the guest and the host at the same time. Well, so great job. And while I close out the show, we're going to put you in the green room, and I will be right back with you in about 2 minutes.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. So, again, we truly appreciate Pam being with us. She had some great insight. Some of it, I wish her opinion was a different way because, she's saying she thinks it might be a year till we're fully adjusted. But you know what? At the end of the day, what did come through and what did shine through tonight's episode and tonight's conversation is that Pam is confident that Staten Island is going to be resilient. Pam is confident that the metrics and the adaptations that have been developed by restaurants and anyone on Staten Island in the food industry will continue to carry them forward. And that ultimately at the end of the day, as she said, Staten Island is going to shine through and come out of this on the other side. So again, Pam, we thank you so much for being with us. Your knowledge and wisdom was great, and it was great to have heard it and be able to share it with everyone who is watching and listening and everyone who will be watching and listening on our podcast and through YouTube. And before we close out, once again, if you're interested in being a guest, if you have a topic or idea you want to discuss, or if you'd like to host what we're doing right here, if you'd like to host a live stream for yourself or a client, shoot us an email, info@prcision.com. We'll be happy to get it up and get it taken care of for you. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This was COVID Talks, positive conversations during uncertain times. Have a good night.